Welcome to the first look, and today we will actually take a look at this very special item. It's inside this box. This is the most expensive IEM I know. This is the Unique Melody Mason FS SSoleil Tombé. Now, I may have pronounced it wrongly, but I apologize for that. But I just want to say that this is really expensive, costing 8,500 USD or about 12,000 Sing dollars. Now, this copy here is loaned to me by Jaben. Thanks to them for loaning me this copy. I'm as interested as everybody else, to know how does this sound like? Is it worth that $12,000? I know that R&D and stuff is expensive, but building an IEM, how much can it cost? But 12,000 Sing dollars or 8,500 USD is a lot of money today. It is forever going to be a lot of money for a small little item. Now, I'm not a stranger to expensive personal audio stuff. You have followed my channel, you should know that I own quite expensive stuff. I mean, I have something like the Abyss, 1266 is pretty expensive, 8,000 new, or something like this, the Warwick Bravura. Now, this is just a headphone, but it comes usually as a system that costs about 10,000 Sing dollars, or somewhere along the line of 7,000 to 8,000 USD, or 6,000, 7,000 USD. It's pretty expensive, but this guy takes the cake at 12,000 USD. So I'm really excited to try it out, just to answer this very simple question. Does it sound better than other flagship IEMs? So today I also do extensive comparison. I'll compare it with the U12T. I mean, that is not flagship, but that pretty much is one of the best sounding IEMs across the range, at least for me. And then I was test it also with what I think is the best sounding IEM to me today, the Maestro SE. Comparison is important to actually understand where does this product lie. Now, I'll unbox it first, then we'll talk a little bit on the specification because it's a bit unique. So let's unbox. It's an experience, right? $12,000. So first, I'll take out this bag. Now, this bag is I don't know, is it meant to hold the IEM? Lightly. See, it even has the writing of Ultimate Sound, and even writes the name of the IEM here. First time I see a bag that writes the name of IEM, very special. Now, this is the box itself. It writes SSoleil Tombé on the cover. I don't know whether you can see in the video. Down here, you can see it. That is how it looks like. Very big box. Let me put in a perspective for you. This is a hard case from Fabric, and you can see how big the box is for the SSoleil Tombé here. Now, I will just call it the Mason FS because I know there's other Masons, but for today's review, I'll just call it the Mason because if not, it's going to be very hard to pronounce this word every time, at least for me. Now, let's take a look at what's inside this box. I mean, this is very premium, so I must take my time looking through the items. Okay, simple booklet here, nothing special. Now, this is pretty much it inside the case itself, the IEM, the case, and a box of something, right? Let's take a look at inside the case itself, things that, with the case. This is the leather pouch. You can put IEM here. I think this is a sling, right? And I believe the way it's designed is to put the IEM on one side and put your DAP on the other side. And then this is like a sling bag to carry them. Or I can understand why they designed it because, for what I understand, this particular IEM requires quite a bit of voltage to run, or is it current? I think it's current, yes, current to run. So they're expecting you to use a pretty good DAP to actually run it properly. As such, I think they designed a pouch like this because, they're guessing that you probably need it. I think some of us do, but most of us probably don't. We got our own sling bags for it. That's it. It's a very, very, very beautiful case. I mean, look at this case. Super beautiful. Most overkill case ever? Yes, but considering that this is 12,000 Sing dollars, 8,500 USD, justifiable. Now, this is the IEM with, of course, the things to guard the items. And let's take a look at what's inside here. Okay. Oh, this is, I don't know what is this exactly. Seems to be something to wrap, I think wrap something, I'm not too sure. Not going to go and explore what is it for, not today. I believe these are the tips for the IEMs. This is the Unique Melodies tips, which I heard pretty good reviews on them. And this is the Esla Elastic. It's elastic. I have the Elastic, so No issue on that. Now these are the IEMs here, very beautiful IEMs. You can see that these IEMs, well, this is the red version. There's also a blue one, and inside this IEM there are 13 drivers. Now this IEM comes with a custom cable. I believe this cable costs thousands of dollars. It is a special made one just for this IEM by another maker. I'm not too sure of the exact name. I think it's PW Audio. If I'm wrong, just correct it for me, or I will correct it myself later. But this is a 13 driver IEM. It is pretty costly. Now this nozzle has a filter guard that can be screwed out, I noticed. I don't know whether it makes a difference to the sound of the IEM, but I'll just leave it on because it's going to be a default state. I mean, most of you guys who actually ever have a chance to try it or even buy it may just use it as it is, so I probably wouldn't want to change too much. Okay, I can't really pull out this plug. It's really tight. And I do know that this is a good cable, so I shall just leave it as it is. Ultimately, this is a set loan to me from Jaben. I don't want to damage it in any way. But you can see that this is very beautiful. So this IEM has 13 drivers, 12 BAs, and a single bone conductor. The exact configuration, I'll put it on the screen here. I'm not an expert in configurations, and I can say is that as long as it sounds good, that's all it matters, right? So this is the setup here. Now this is an expensive IEM. I'll give it its due respect in terms of equipment to try it out. This is the Mass Kobo 475, balanced into a M9 Plus shuntling, Quad 4499EX, and this will be the setup that will be used to test the IEM today. Now I could have powered some desktop setups that probably cost a little bit more, but it doesn't make sense for them. They are meant to drive like headphones that require a lot more power, and also because this is a balance, I could not use my emblem, which is probably a better fit because supposedly this is a high current draw system. So let's not waste time and try it out. Now I just now pulled the two tips out because my ears, I will use only small tips. Normally I don't roll tips for the IEMs that I try, but because it's at this price range, I should at least give it its respect. Now normally I do prefer the Baroque tips, so you know what, yeah, let me use the Baroque tips. So the tips are up, and let's plug it in and have a listen. So now that everything is set up, I will try Backlight as the first song to test out this setup here, and let's have a listen to how it is like. I just did my first impression of the IEM with Backlight from Edo. I will actually going to hear Backlight from Vonday later, and that's because this IEM, at least to me, first impression is pretty good. Now let me explain to you the sound signature. Firstly, it does have deep bass rumble, very nice deep bass rumble in this IEM. You really can feel the rumble, but you know, a lot of IEMs with deep bass rumble will usually have a bit more of a flabby impact, while these have pretty good controlled impact. So it has good impact and good quantity of impact and still have the rumble. So at least for my first impression, it's pretty good in the bass department. The texture is there, the impact is there, the speed of the bass is there, everything is there. Now, when it comes to mids, now there is only a guitar and vocals. I mean, there's some parts with other instruments coming in, but those things are very well rendered. It is very smooth, very nice, and it's quite wide. At least the sound that I hear just now, overall is quite well spread out. So there are some IEMs that are very compressed together. This IEM sounds pretty good and spread out to me. Now at the highest level, now this thing only has mainly cymbals, and then the age of instruments sometimes can be at the highs. So I do think that overall the highs do extend out quite well. Edo's voice is also very well extended. I mean, that also belongs to the highs. And assured that the cymbals are very nice and clean. When they crash, I would say the decay is very natural sounding. Everything actually sounds pretty good here. And not only that, I think that there is some emphasis definitely also in the treble region. But for this particular song, I did not hear any form of sibilance. So overall, I do enjoy the sound a lot in Backlight from Edo. Now, that is first song. Let's try the second song straight away. Now, I'm a person that loves vocals a lot, especially from Edo recently. So let's not waste time. I will hear I No Akuruhi. Now, this is more of a simple song, not much instruments, and I just want to hear how it sounds like for vocals for me. So now with the second song, I No Akuruhi, I just kind of feel like, firstly, soundstage is pretty big. The sound is well spread out, really quite large. Clarity is actually really good. I mean, there were guitars playing with bass, with vocals, and some other instruments there. I'm not too sure what's there. But I can always hear the guitars very well separated from the rest of the track, and the guitar rendering is really nice, like really natural. The pluckings, the string sound, very good for this particular IEM. Now vocals for this IEM is actually a little bit forward and quite smooth and quite extended, so it does give a very airy sound to the vocals themselves, at least for female vocals. Now same thing for the bass. There is the punch and there is the texture, the bass, low rumbles, all there. Very well rendered for me. In fact, I do really enjoy its bass for even this song. Now this song is not meant to be very bassy. There's only some bass, but whenever it happens, it's actually pretty enjoyable for this. Overall, I think that details, clarity, soundstage, all pretty good. Like, as good as it gets for what I heard so far, at least through my memory. Comparison is important. But most importantly, I think the bass was very, very nice. I'm not sure whether is it a bone conductor or something. Yeah, the bass was really good. And then soundstage is pretty awesome too. Okay, that is it for first impression without comparison. I pretty much don't like to talk too much on this because it is very iffy based on my memory, which is not very good. So U12T here, let's do a comparison. So this is the U12T and this is the Mason FS, SSoleil Tombé, and well, this is 1/5 the price of this, but you know, this is quite well recognized. It is not cheap, you know, at 2,000 USD. It is pretty expensive still. I just want to compare and just see what's the difference between their sound. For this song, I want to try whether is there any sibilance given certain type of vocal singing. Now, Ado has a song called Ibarra, which is, to me, very prone to sibilance. Most IEM will have some sort of sibilance there, and I like to use it just for a comparison's sake on how it actually sounds like, whether there's sibilance. And also that song is actually very fast-paced, very energetic. I just want to see which is a more energetic IEM, and then of course the high extensions, how does it sound like for both of them. So I had a very long listening session comparing the different parts of Ibarra all the way from the start to the end of the song. I think I spent like 30 minutes or 40 minutes so far. Just want to say that there is a few noticeable difference. Firstly, I would say as from the bass point of view, the bass impact and the bass texture, I would say hands down, the Mason FS is way better than the, you know, U12T. It's like way better. The texture, the impact, the whole quality of the bass is just better on the unique melody itself. Now that's the first thing I noticed. It's very, very clear. From the first beat of the drum to the parts where there were just like low bass, I don't know what instrument, like low bass frequency humming, the texture on the Mason is way better. While this one just sounds like bass, but there is some texture here. That's the difference. Okay, first one, right? Second one, the vocal and the mids region. Now, the mids region wise, I would say as overall the tonality, you know, the tonality of this Mason is a little bit more on the warmer side. While the, I would say as for the U12T is a little bit on the neutral cool side. So, you know, that's how red color, hot and warm. I mean, when you listen it really feels warm. I don't know whether it's a psychoacoustics here, but, you know, it really is much warmer. There's a lot more body in the sound. Vocals do sound a little bit sweeter. Ado's voice sounds full, while for the U12T, it just sounds clear. So clear versus full, personal preference again. No, which one is better is a whole debate of its own. Now, for instruments in the mids, the guitars, I think both of them are equally, you know, good. I do feel like the U12T do present them a little bit more distinct, but you know, is it better? I think both are about the same for like guitar in this particular track itself. Maybe the Mason feels a little bit more enjoyable, but you know, the U12T is like really clear, very clean guitar there, and the mids level, right? Now, I just want to talk about how the vocals are rendered also. It's slightly different. For the U12T, it's like a big, I would say it's a big vocal sound. So it disperses slightly, but you know, the dispersion stops after a while. So that it feels like blackness, you know, there's feel like, if U12T always feels like there is blackness on the left, right, and in between the instruments. That's how it sounds like, very clean, very pure. The Mason, however, feels like there's a lot of atmosphere in the sound. Like the vocals are very focused in the middle, and then it disperses out. Overall, the soundstage do sound bigger for the Mason itself than the U12T. Like, sounds a lot bigger, but the vocals and some of the mid instruments are very, very focused on the Mason, like right in the center and it's very strong. Well, it disperses very nicely throughout. There's this very nice atmospheric feel, very similar to the Onyx itself. So maybe I'll compare with Onyx later, but yeah, you get the gist of it. Now, when it comes to the highs, I would say as the highs itself, both seems to extend quite a bit. Both of them very nice and airy for vocals. The instruments on the highs are also very clear. I do find that it's slightly clearer on the U12T, but it's more like maybe an emphasis rather than is it better in clarity itself. The absolute details in the highs, I think both are about the same. I do feel like in the middle of song of Ibarra, there are cymbals and there's this high frequencies, right? I think it's still cymbals playing in the background there. It's more distinct on the U12T, while in the Mason I have to focus to find it. So goes back to the atmosphere feel again. The U12T always feel like there is some blackness between instruments, so it's very distinct and separated, while the Mason actually presents it as more of a whole picture, whole sound to you. Slightly different rendition, very similar to how Onyx do. That atmosphere actually adds a little bit of value to the sound itself. It makes it feel more immersive, as some of my friends say when they listen to the Onyx. They always feel that Onyx is very immersive. But the Onyx always lack details, and I think the Mason is like an Onyx with details. Something to think about later. In terms of energy, different type of energy here, right? This is like ultra pure clear energy, very powerful and push forward. Well, this is like big sound, big energy, but it doesn't have that kind of forcefulness that the U12T presents. And depending on which part of Ibarra you're listening, some part the forcefulness is nice, so the U12T actually carries, especially during the chorus, but when you are in the non-chorus region, I find that the Mason is more enjoyable. It feels very big and over-encompassing. Difference in sound again, personal preference, which is better. Overall, you ask me from the technicality point of view, I think the Mason is slightly better. It's because of the bass. Now, everything else sounds like a volume difference. But when it comes to the bass and the atmosphere, the rendition of the texture there, I think the Mason is doing a better job there. So it feels like technicality-wise, the Mason is slightly ahead of the U12T, and it only boils down to the bass region difference. Now, for the mix and high, it's a personal preference, it's a rendition difference, and I think it's up to you whether you prefer a little bit more highs, a bit less highs, more clear, or a bit more atmospheric. Difference in sound. I use atmospheric because the clarity on this is pretty good. I mean, things that should appear will appear. If you can find the U12T, you definitely can find the Mason. It's not a case where it disappears, you know. It's just, is it filled up in between, and does it feel like a cohesive piece of sound? And in the Mason, it's a very cohesive piece of sound. Now, for the second song, I'll be listening to Vonde's version of Backlight. Now, Vonde's version of Backlight is very nice. It's a male version, of course, and he renders it differently. There's a lot of small little details inside there, and I want to hear the details in this particular song itself. It is a more, I would say, as expressive edition of Ado's track when it comes to the instruments, though I do think that Ado's rendition when it comes to pushing the power is a bit better, but no, Vonde has his own rendition which is very smooth. I actually do like Vonde one slightly more. Now, when I heard Vonde's Backlight, and mainly it's the first 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes of the track, I will have to say that depends on your personal preference for this one. This is very interesting. Now, I will just outright say that the U12T, I can hear a little bit more details here. Especially at the start where there's this electric guitar that, goes in and out at the corner, and when it comes to the crowd screaming itself, I do feel that the U12T do render additional things that I can hear, at least at the volume. I mean, I could jack the volume up, but it becomes very confusing for both IEMs. So jacking the volume up is not a solution. But when it comes to those really small details, then I say the U12T do render them a little bit better. But it's not like it doesn't exist in the Mason, but more like it's a little bit more far behind and a bit softer. And the texture is not as great in those very, very fine details. Now, but when it comes to the bass itself, the Mason beats the U12T bass. The impact, the whole rumble, the feeling of the bass is just way, way, way better on the Mason. Now, depending on how you want to listen to this song, which is Vonde's Backlight, I feel that I would prefer the Mason's take on it, and that's purely because it's more atmospheric again. Once again, it's about the atmosphere, it's about that big concert feeling. When the scream comes in, the whole atmosphere of the song, the Mason renders it very nice. U12T just renders it like a song, like you play very clean, clear, and then you can hear the separation in between. That is how the U12T renders, very clean and very clear. But the Mason gives that a little bit of touch of atmosphere where things are filled up, like things are happening together as one big piece of music that is playing in the live avenue. And Backlight, I feel like Backlight, this particular song Backlight from Vonde is that kind of feel. So for this particular song, I think Mason is a better IEM. But it's a preference, right? Because it's about the atmosphere, but the feel, the bass, the whole energy in the song. The Mason just renders it nicer than the U12T. The U12T just renders it a bit too clean and too pure for me for this particular track. Now, I have listened to 2 tracks with the U12T and the Mason. I just want to conclude for this part of comparison is that if you are looking for absolute clarity and clearness and you just want to hear the small little stuff in live, I think the U12T probably will do it better. And it's the case not because Mason doesn't have the details, but it's the way they render. While Mason has a lot of atmosphere, a lot of feel, a very cohesive sound, but I think it comes at the cost of some of these very detailed and small little things that happen. It comes at the cost of those things. Can you hear them? Yes, you can. You just need to really focus, while the U12T kind of like slaps in your face difference. But if you are bass, you love bass, there's not even a competition here. So U12T just loses in bass itself. Now, if you love treble and high energy, I would say as the U12T is slightly better in that, but it's not a case where it has a lot more high energy, it's just slightly more. But if you like vocals, I do think that Mason vocals is a bit more warm and a bit more full-bodied. So personal preference here, which you prefer on that. I do think that the full-bodied sound is always very enticing to listen, and it's a lot more soothing to listen on the long run. I think for the fatigue point of view, I will take Mason over the U12T because it's probably going to be less fatiguing in every single way. There is just totally no sibilance, the highs are just nice, and the bass, even though it's a lot, you can always reduce the volume a bit, and the overall clarity is very good. Vocals are very nice and smooth and warm and full-bodied. Yeah, there's one last thing also. The soundstage for Backlight, once again, Mason beats the U12T. No comparison here. So let's go on to the second comparison now. Now, this is actually very close in configuration. This is like full BA. This is BA with BCD, bone conductor. So the difference is just the bone conductor here and the tuning, right? So I'm going to try another IEM that has a lot of different type of things except for bone conductor and see how it fares against it. Now I'm back here, and originally I want to compare it with the Maestro SE, but after some considering this is a very atmospheric type of sound, a very big atmospheric sound, I want to compare it to something very similar, and that is the Noble Onyx. Now, my impression is that the Onyx will probably have less highs, but overall sound signature should be very, very similar to the Mason itself. Now, the difference in price is about 3 times. This is about 4,000 plus. This is about 12,000 Sing dollars. I'm always talking about Sing dollars here. It's easier for me. 3 times the difference, but I remember that his sound signature is quite similar. Let's have a listen and see what's the difference itself. I have listened to both of them using the song Backlight from Vonde, and first I want to say that both of them have a lot of atmosphere, but it's different, right? The Mason is a bit warmer. Overall, the whole tone is a bit warmer, and the atmosphere is a bit thicker, a bit more lifelike. While I would say as for the Noble Onyx itself, it's big, like an open stage environment, and the whole energy is there. It's just a different type of energy. It's a bit more, I would say the Mason is actually very warm. Like really you feel the crowd, that kind of feeling. While for the Onyx, it's more like very big environment, like really a hall, and then the person is singing, some indoor stadium kind of feel. Yeah, so that's the difference. Now, in terms of soundstage, I would say as the Onyx actually is slightly bigger. Soundstage is actually wider on the Onyx. Quite a bit wider. I mean, Mason is wider than the U12T, and Onyx is wider than the Mason. That's how I put the soundstage itself. Now, in terms of clarity itself, it depends on the volume. As you go higher in volume, I find that the Onyx gets clearer, while Mason, as you go higher in volume, it starts losing the Onyx in clarity. So in lower volumes, I find that the overall clarity and details on the Mason is maybe a touch better than the Onyx itself. But once you on it loud enough, the Onyx for some reason like kind of wakes up and it becomes more clearer. So it depends on which volume you play. If you are a very, very loud listener, I think that the Onyx is actually slightly more clear. Maybe it's the separation, and maybe because it toned down some of the highs. So that is also where the difference is. When it comes to the highs, the cymbals itself, as I was saying just now, U12T, the cymbals are more clear than the Mason. And in this case, the Mason is more clear than the Onyx when it comes to the cymbals itself. Until you play at very high levels. As you get high levels, I find that the Mason gets a bit of confusion there. While for the Onyx itself, it kinda maintains the clarity to really, really loud volumes. Now, when it comes to vocals themselves, it depends on what kind of feels you want with the vocals. This is a male singer, Vonde is a male one. So I'll say is if you want a bit more bodied and power, then I think the Mason is actually more bodied, more power. While the Onyx is like big sound that spreads around. It's kind of like when we describe the Masons versus the U12T, it's kind of weird. But you know, if you want to rank like in terms of big wide sound, a bit more smooth and overall more laid back, then the Onyx is the most extreme one. Mason is somewhere in between. It has a big sound, it has a lot of energy, but if you're talking about absolute energy there, I think the U12T has it. But the biggest difference is that Mason's energy is more full-bodied, all the way from bottom to top. It has a lot of energy, while U12T is a bit more on the top level energy, while Onyx is a bit more relaxed sound. So difference in rendition again. If you like that powerful, very big atmosphere, in this case of backlight, I would say as Mason ages out the Onyx slightly in backlight for Vonde, just slightly. And you know, it is a interesting way of rendition. I don't think that in this case, technicality wise, there is a lot of difference. There's one last thing before I change another song, and that is the Mason's bass is slightly nicer. I mean slightly is because in terms of texture, both of these IEM has very good texture. I think in terms of sub-bass depth, probably the Onyx have even more sub-bass depth, the in-depth texture all the way to the end, there is more. But when it comes to the impact, the problem is of the tuning, I guess, where the tuning of the Onyx is more of the bass is a bit flabby sounding because of the deeper bass it goes. While even though the Mason has that deep bass, it doesn't have that flabby sound. It's still very clean impact. So it is kind of like the best of both worlds, combining, you know, the clean and quick sound of a BA, but yet still have the sub-bass extension, and that's how the Mason feels like. So I would say as in terms of bass, if you are just wanting the deep bass sound, then I think Onyx is fine. But if you really want the deep bass sound, okay, not maybe as deep as the Onyx, but no, slightly less deep, but it has that impact to it every time the bass slams, and it's very clean, I think the Mason is the better bass. So if you put in the row again, Mason have the best bass, followed by the Onyx, then the U12T. Now I'm just, you know, picking, small little picking in betweens, but you know, that's how I rank three of them. So I'll just listen to one more song for this comparison before we end off this sounding, and I will look at the Mason one more time for some stuff. So okay, so the next song I'll listen, let's see. Let's not hear any more Ado song. The next song I'll use is Witch from Mercury. This is a soundtrack. It's one of the key insert songs for the series The Witch from Mercury. It is very grand, very big, and when it comes to atmosphere, I will have say Onyx beats all my other IEMs for it in this song itself. Let's see whether the Mason outperforms the Onyx. So I have to listen to the song Witch from Mercury for both of these IEMs again. Now this is an interesting one. Now if you are looking for grand scale of this track, which is meant to be a very big orchestra track, I would say as the track wise, I think the Onyx is better for that. It is like grander, it's like big. I mean the Mason is also very big, but it's rendered very differently. And I just want to explain how it's rendered now. Okay, so the Onyx is just huge. It's like endless limit. So you can think of it, this is like a super huge indoor stadium or outdoor stadium. That is how it sounds like. Not much reverb, just endless space. Very, very big sounds that are spreading across. That's how the Onyx is rendered. The Mason is like a nice big orchestra hall. If in Singapore terms, that's the Esplanade. Imagine just listening to Esplanade versus the stadium, you know, that's kind of feeling like it. You can think of it as any large orchestra hall versus any large outdoor live performance. The soundstage difference is immense difference. Onyx just feels bigger, it feels more grand, it feels like everything just spreads out. But the Mason carries that warmth, that slight, atmosphere sound, the warm-bodied sound across. It sounds big, but Onyx just extends across as far as possible. Now, when it comes to bass, once again, it goes back to what I said just now. Sub-bass, that rumbling feeling, Onyx is better. But if you are looking for a good amount of rumble, yet you want to keep all the bass impact, very clean, clear impact that is very thumpy sounding, then I think the Mason does it better for that. It's very thumpy sounding. But for this particular track where you want that nice low rumble, I think I will favor the Onyx for this track a little bit more. But I do think that the Mason is probably technically better. That's the feeling I get. But for the feels of this track, the Onyx is superior. Now, when it comes to the general other instruments, the mids and the highs, I think they are very similar. I mean, it depends whether you want a big sound, a strong, warm, big sound versus a more cooler tone and a bit more relaxed, big sound. So that's the difference there. I don't think there's much difference, at least to me, mids and highs in terms of rendition. I mean, there's tonality difference because of the warm and a bit more neutral, that kind of thing. But, the quality, the details, very, very similar throughout this entire track. Now, if I was to choose between one, if I only can choose one, I would likely prefer the Onyx for this track than the Mason. But I can see why some people would actually choose the Mason instead, because it has this very big full-bodied sound, while the Onyx is just not as full-bodied as it is. So really, that's the difference in comparison for this. I just want to summarize the sound signature of what I heard so far from the Mason and how actually it ranks, compared to the Onyx and the U12T. When it comes to bass, I think the Mason is the best among them. It just has the punchiest bass, yet retaining good amount of sub bass. It's not like the U12T, a bit flabby, and the Onyx is just a lot of sub bass but not much impact. This has good impact and very, very good amount of sub bass still. Not as much as Onyx, but still really good. Now, when it comes to the mids itself, I think it's a tonality difference thing, where the whole tonality of this earphone for the Mason is a bit more warmer tone, while the U12T is more on the cooler tone and the Onyx is somewhere in between them. Now, which do you prefer will actually determine your rendition. Now, for vocals itself, that warm tone can give a more lush feeling, a bit more full-bodied feeling. And that is good if you are listening, at least for me, when I heard Vonde, I think that full-bodied feeling is very nice there. Even for Ado, which is not so high-pitched, it's really nice that she got a full body. But it really depends on the song, right? If I was hearing something like I Know Akuruhi, where I don't need that full body, maybe I will prefer the Onyx instead. But I didn't hear it and compare it today, so no idea yet. But I can just imagine that it depends on the flavor. Now, this warmness does give a bit more lush and smooth feeling to the vocals itself, and I really think that Mason really carries that kind of feeling very, very good throughout the entire testing session today. Now, when it comes to the instruments in the mids, I do think that when it comes to pluckiness, I think the U12T is ahead in terms of pluckiness, but this is definitely ahead compared to the Onyx in terms of pluckiness. And therefore, at normal volume, I do think that I can pick up a little bit more detail than the Onyx for this, a little less detail than the U12T. So it's somewhere in between when it comes to the pluckiness of string instrument. Now, when it comes to the which is more right sounding, I think there is I will choose between these and the Onyx when it comes to the right sounding. But Onyx have to on a little bit louder to get the more right sound, because at lower volume it feels a little bit more muffled there. The U12T is a bit too sparkly for me, even for the string instruments. So I do think that the Mason is a bit more natural sounding there. I didn't hear any tracks with violin, so no comments on violin. Piano-wise, I think it is pretty much okay for all three of them. I do think that the Mason, with his warm piano feeling, feels more like a nicely built grand piano. That's the difference, right? At the highs itself, now if you like sparkly highs, I think the U12T is better. But between these, the U12T and the Onyx, I think this is the balance between them. I can imagine that, if you like the highs, this is a good one, especially in nominal volume. Now, if you want to listen louder, then the Onyx will have a more tame and smooth high, a more enjoyable high, if you ask me. honest. But in the normal listening volume, I think this is the just nice highs. No, not too I say overly sparkly and hot, but not too dull like the Onyx. Onyx is a little bit dull and you need on a little bit louder to get all the qualities back. But you know, when you on louder for this, it starts losing details. Well, U12T is the same thing. When U12T and this ons louder, it just sounds very confusing to me. While for the Onyx, when it ons louder, it feels a little bit more clear there. So I think that the Mason itself overall is a very good IM if you like bassy stuff and you like that warm tone, you want the atmosphere in your sound, you want that really big powerful vocal that extends as far as possible, you like focus in the mids region, and you like treble that is well extended but balanced, you know, not overly sparkly and crazy like some IEMs out there. So after comparison, compared to when I really did my first impression just now, I do think that the highs are still on the higher side, but not as high as something like the U12T, at least to me, right? So definitely, if you are looking at Annihilator, for example, this is definitely not the same as Annihilator when it comes to treble itself. But this will beat the Annihilator when it comes to the bass, when it comes to the sub bass, and when it comes to the mids power. I just tried the Annihilator very recently. Now with all that, where does this IEM stand, right? I cannot tell you whether this is worth 12,000 Sing dollars or not, or 8,500 USD or not. I can just say that it is a competent high-end IEM. And if you like the signature, this may be the only one in the market. You know, the atmosphere type of sound is surprisingly not as common as I think it is. Other than the Onyx, most of the other IEMs like the Maestro SE and the U12T is a little bit more very clean, very clear separation between every single instrument and notes. So atmosphere, I don't know whether is it a BCD thing, is it a bone conductor thing or not. Maybe when I try the other products, I'll come to a conclusion for that. At least when it comes to atmospheric sound and when it comes to that feeling of one cohesive music, I think this and the Onyx does it really well. Just that this is more of a warmer tone with a punchier bass, just less sub, while the Onyx is like more sub, bigger sound, but more laid back. So, personal preference. I mean, I have not found any IEM that can beat the Onyx when, you know, the Onyx is, of course, at an appropriate level. I have not found a single IEM that can beat the Onyx when it comes to the atmosphere and size and scale of soundstage. Just that it's a bit laid back. I mean, some people may not like it, and, you know, the difference are there. Okay, I just want to end off with one last look at the cable itself because I didn't show you guys just now, right? Now you can see here, this is the splitter here. This very nice splitter, like really nice splitter. And it has engraving, UM's first time shielding Pro Red. Now, is it a deep engraving? Let me touch. It feels like it's definitely not jutting out. I hope it's engraving inside. But the material is really nice. I mean, look at this material. It's really, really good. Now, same for the plug. So this is the first time I see somebody engrave on the plug too. Maybe I didn't see enough, but there's also engraving on the plug. Ultimate Sound by UM. So, you know, they actually spend a lot of effort engraving all parts of the cables. Now, I do like one thing also is that there is some curling, I think they call it curling here. It's easier to pull the cable and grip the cable. So that's a nice thing. And also, I noticed the top here, this heat shrink tube that's on top is a plastic, I think. And then with the jacket below, nicely closes off this shielding itself. So it is very well built. This is not a gold plated. I believe this may be platinum plated or something like that. Or is it white gold plated? Not too sure. Never go and research on it too much. But it looks different. It's not gold plating. Yes. Other than that, nothing much to say. The cable is, I mean, there is a shielding all around it. I don't think you can see what's inside the cable. I don't even know what's the material itself, but I guess it should be pretty nice. It should be pretty good. I just want to end off that this is still a very expensive IEM. Whatever I said just now, in the end of the day, I think for 12,000 Sing dollars, this is an IEM that you must love it. You should go down to one of your retailers or CanJam and try the heck out of it before even considering committing. It is really, really expensive. There are some things it do better than the IEMs I have. There are some things that other IEMs can still do better than this. You know, it's a balance there. IEM is very subjective, and the one you like and the one I like is probably different. Preferences make a huge difference here. And there is some things that are really just better on this IEM. The atmosphere, the feeling, the body, the bass. Overall, a very balanced treble. This may be what you are looking for. This may be to you the best. But to me, I prefer the Onyx a little bit more. But it's a preference. I still think that this is a great IEM. Just that I probably would not spend $12,000 on it. And that's about it for today. This is the first look of the SSoleil Tombé from Unique Melody. This is still one of the best IEM I ever tried. It ticks off a lot of boxes. It does things very well. But for me, I still prefer my Onyx a little bit more. That's about it. And I hope you enjoy this short little first look. Bye bye.